All right, today we're stepping into the high-stakes world of the intensive care unit where these incredible machines work around the clock to save lives. But there's a critical, everyday problem with one of these machines that a lot of people don't know about. It costs time, it costs money, and it can put the absolute sickest patients at risk. So we're going to break down exactly what that problem is and explore a potential new solution on the horizon.
I mean, really think about that for a second. In an environment where every single second is critical, what are the real consequences when a continuous life-sustaining therapy just stops? That's what we're digging into today, why this happens so often, and what can be done about it. So our focus is on a very specific type of dialysis. It's called continuous renal replacement therapy, or CRRT for short. Now, this is not the kind of dialysis most of us picture. This is a specialized lifeline reserved only for the most critically ill patients hanging on in the ICU. So what's the big difference? Well, the dialysis you've probably heard of is for stable outpatients. It's pretty fast, a few hours, a few times a week. CRRT, on the other hand, is this super gentle 24/7 therapy. It's for ICU patients who are so unstable they literally couldn't handle the stress of regular dialysis. We're talking about patients with multiple organ failures, often on ventilators. This machine is their constant support system.
Okay, so here's the fundamental problem, the real crux of the issue. When blood leaves the human body and hits the foreign material of the dialysis circuit, it does what blood is supposed to do. It tries to clot. And that clogs up the filter, which is basically the patient's artificial kidney, bringing the entire life-saving therapy to a grinding halt.
And believe me, this isn't some rare occurrence. These filters are designed to last for up to 72 hours. But one expert, Dr. Talphera, reported that at his hospital, the median lifespan is just 13 hours. 13! That means half of their filters are failing even faster than that. So this continuous therapy isn't really so continuous after all. And the ripple effect of just one single clot is massive. The therapy stops for anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. That's time the patient desperately needs that treatment. If the blood in the circuit can't be returned, they can lose about half a unit of blood. Each new filter costs hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars, and it just eats up an incredible amount of a nurse's time.
So the obvious question is, why don't we just, prevent the clots? Well, doctors have two main options to do that, and as you're about to see, they are both deeply flawed. In fact, things are so tricky that many hospitals just choose to use nothing at all because they don't trust the choices they have. First up, you've got citrate. Now, it can be effective, but just look at this protocol. It's a logistical nightmare. You have to give the citrate, then constantly monitor a bunch of different labs, give a totally separate continuous calcium infusion that also has to be constantly adjusted based on those labs, all while watching out for potentially life-threatening side effects. It is a huge, huge burden on the nurses and pharmacists. And hey, don't take my word for it. Dr. Sharon McMahon, who runs the whole CRT program at her university, puts it, well, very bluntly. She says it's an absolute pain in the ass because it's just this constant, complex thing to manage.
Okay, so what's the other option? Heparin, a pretty standard blood thinner, but it has its own set of major problems. For one, its effect is really unpredictable. It's hard to get the dose just right. And crucially, it's systemic, meaning it thins the blood everywhere in the patient's body, not just in the machine. That creates a serious bleeding risk for these already fragile patients. And after all that risk, it's not even that great, only extending the filter's life to about 26 hours.
Dr. Talphera is even more direct about heparin. He just calls it garbage and an inferior agent. He points out that it's not considered the first choice for almost any other condition anymore, yet here it is, still one of the main options. So you can see doctors are stuck between a rock and a hard place. One option is way too complex, and the other is too dangerous and doesn't even work that well. This is where a company called Talphera thinks it has the answer. They've got a potential solution in the pipeline called NIAD. So NIAD, or nafamostat, is designed to be the best of both worlds. The big idea here is that it's a regional anticoagulant. That means it works its magic inside the dialysis machine, in the filter and the tubing, but it has a super short half-life. So by the time the blood gets back to the patient, the drug is mostly gone, which should dramatically lower that scary systemic bleeding risk. And this comparison table, it really just tells the whole story. Where heparin has that big systemic bleeding risk, and citrate is super complex with its own metabolic risks, NIAD is designed to be regional and simple. The goal is to basically combine the ease of use you get with heparin with a safety and effectiveness profile that could be even better than citrate. And that simplicity isn't just about what the nurse does at the bedside. It's also about logistics.
Citrate often comes in these huge 5-liter bags. They're so bulky that some hospitals need off-site warehouse storage and have to literally truck in pallets of the stuff every couple of days. Niad, on the other hand, is being given in its clinical trial in a simple, small 500cc bag. For a hospital pharmacy, that difference is just enormous.
So, what do the end users think, the people on the front lines? Well, Dr. McMahon says the nurses in the clinical trial are incredibly excited. They see how simple the NIAID setup is, and they get it immediately. They see the potential to make their jobs easier and provide better, more consistent care. Of course, having a really promising drug is one thing. You still have to get it through all the clinical trials and get it approved by the FDA. So let's take a look at the path forward for NIAID. Okay, here's the roadmap. The company hit the 50% enrollment mark for its big study in early 2026. They're aiming to get fully enrolled and get their submission into the FDA in the second half of this year. If all goes well, that could put them on a path for a potential approval sometime in 2027. Now, you might have heard that trial enrollment has been a bit of a challenge, but the reason why is really the key here. The study protocol was designed to be ultra-safe, which is good, but it means they have to exclude a ton of patients, like anyone with even a slightly higher risk of bleeding, who doctors say would be perfect, even ideal candidates for NIOMAD in the real world. And Dr. Texera confirms this directly. He says the problem isn't a lack of patients who need the drug, it's that the trial criteria are so strict. The very patients who could benefit the most from a safer regional option are often the ones who aren't allowed into the study. And for a small company like this, the money question is always critical. Talphera reported having $20.4 million in cash and investments. They've stated that this, combined with some other financing, should give them the financial runway they need to get all the way through that potential FDA approval next year.
So let's zoom out. If NIAID makes it across the finish line, what does that actually mean for patients and for hospitals? What's the real-world impact we're talking about?
It really boils down to 3 huge potential game changers. 1, a dramatic drop in the burden on nurses, freeing them up for other critical patient care. 2, a big increase in how long the filters last, making the therapy truly more continuous and way more cost-effective. And 3, and this is a big one, because it's so simple, it could be adopted by community hospitals that right now don't use any anticoagulation because citrate is just too complex for them to handle safely.
And that brings us to our final thought here. The doctors we heard from pointed out that dialysis is just one of many new treatments where blood is treated outside the body. All these therapies, for all sorts of conditions, face the exact same problem: clotting. A simple, safe, regional anticoagulant wouldn't just be a better tool for dialysis. It could be a key that unlocks a whole new generation of life-saving treatments.